Hello, Dr. Mary here with 4 Points Family Chiropractic. Thanks for tuning in to our December health topic, all about fiber, one of the missing nutrients that we see a lot of patients just not incorporating the way that they should, and then the clinical outcomes of that. So it's just one of the things to be thinking about. I know it's going to be a hard time of year to do it as we kind of launch into a time of year where there's a lot of sugar and processed foods. Just keep this in the back of your mind because it might help you make healthier decisions. So one of the things that fiber is known for is kind of keeping you regular, but it's so much more than that. It does so much more for your body. It's foundational to digestive health and your metabolic stability, your inflammation control, and actually long-term disease prevention, primarily colorectal cancer, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a moment. But the majority of Americans in particular, we fall drastically short of the recommended intake. Like, we're not even close to hitting what we should be hitting, and that has repercussions down the road. And if you know anything about our office, we are always thinking about you guys now and down the road. So the conversation matters clinically because a fiber deficiency will show up in our exam rooms every day. We're not doing exams for it. We kind of hear it when we're talking to you guys. So things like constipation, bloating, blood sugar irregularity, dysbiosis, so like just issues with your gut microflora. And again, it's long-term cancer risk. And we can impact the nerves that control those processes, particularly the speed of motility. But anything you can be doing on your own to support is going to be a priority as well. So let's break down what fiber is overall, what it does, and what happens when you get too much, too little, and what the research says about colon cancer, particularly in young adults. Okay, so there's 3 main types of nutrients that we all learn, right? So protein, fat, carbohydrates. Fiber is a carbohydrate, and it's a form of carb that is indigestible. That's important. We want it. I know that the indigestible part makes it sound like why bother, but it has a pretty important impact on our nervous system. So it's found mostly in plants, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts, seeds, and it comes in 2 major forms. Soluble fiber is the kind that dissolves in water. And when it's in your gut and it interacts with water in your body, it forms a gel-like material, and that moves through your gut. So it slows digestion, which you want because it allows for nutrient absorption, but it doesn't slow it too much so that things can permeate the barrier. So it slows digestion, stabilizes your blood sugar. That's the important one. And it feeds our good gut bacteria. Now, insoluble fiber is not dissolvable. So my grandmother would have called that roughage. It's the part that adds bulk, and it helps move your waste through your body smoothly through the digestive tract, which if you have any sort of digestive distress is kind of a priority, right? You want to keep things moving efficiently and smoothly and comfortably. Both types matter, and most people benefit from having a balanced intake of both. The balanced intake, of course, is the thing to pay attention to. Why fiber matters clinically. It plays a role in every system in the body, not just the gut. But the biggest one is digestive function and motility. So what fiber does is it regulates bowel movements. It prevents constipation, supports formation of healthy stool, and it helps you avoid the things that go with not having healthy bowel movements. So things like hemorrhoids, diverticulitis, IBS, those things. And one of the most common clinical complaints is digestive distress, and that is directly linked to not having enough fiber for most people. Now, the other thing that it does is it creates gut microbiome health. We have actually on our YouTube channel an entire talk about the gut microbiome and why it matters and how it controls the brain, it influences the brain and the nervous system. It is so, so important. I encourage you to go check that out. There's great books out there. You're hearing more about it. Gut microbiome, if you had to focus on one thing for a whole year and you did that, you would probably see a lot of health changes in a really positive way. But what fiber does is it acts as a fuel for the beneficial bacteria in the colon. So when the bacteria ferment fiber, they create something called a short chain fatty acid. Short chain fatty acids, particularly butyrate, those compounds reduce inflammation. They feed the good gut bacteria, they strengthen the gut lining, and they actually directly lower cancer risk. The mechanism is really well described in research, but that impact on immune function and influence on preventing colon cancer is a huge, huge thing to consider. Metabolic regulation is also something that fiber plays a huge part in. Soluble fiber slows glucose absorption. Now, the reason we care about that is when glucose gets absorbed too quickly, you'll have the blood sugar spikes and then crashes. So when you consume food and you get like all this energy and then you have to go take a nap afterwards, that's a blood sugar spike. Fiber slows the glucose from going into your bloodstream and your liver so that doesn't happen. So a lot of times people will have like a sugar heavy meal, and if you just have some soluble and insoluble fiber with it, it'll slow that process. Won't fix it, but it'll slow it. It also helps reduce LDL cholesterol. LDL is the bad cholesterol, L for lousy, right? It's the type that we don't want to have high amounts of. So fiber helps lower those LDL numbers. And it helps actually create some weight stability for some folks because it will increase satiety. Basically, it tells your brain that feedback from the stomach to the brain says, hey, we're full. That's enough. Because when the fiber hits the gut and absorbs water, it expands. Now, that feeling full longer, of course, also helps with blood sugar regulation. The other thing fiber does is it helps with hormone and inflammatory modulation. Those short-chain fatty acids, they produce fiber fermentation, and the fermentation has anti-inflammatory effect on the gut and on the body and even neurological health and immune function. So it's not just roughage, it's a metabolic and microbe regulating nutrient. Now, the motility part is the thing that we pay attention to in our office. So often we'll see patients come in and they're having issues with motility, either too fast or too slow. And there are certain areas of the spine that we assess for that. So if you know somebody that's having trouble with motility, again, too fast, too slow, fiber's not making a difference, dietary change isn't making a difference, they can come get a full exam, including any necessary x-rays, nerve study, orthopedic test, review of findings with a doctor. That's normally $348. If they come in and they offer the word fiber, they talk about this Facebook Live, they can get that full exam for $97. It's one of the things that we found really helps people with their digestion is having their nervous system regulated. So fiber, you have to know how much you need, right? And there's two different things that can happen, or all three really. One, you're getting the ideal amount. That's almost nobody. What happens if you don't get enough? Most people get about half the recommended amount, which is a huge deficit, right? The average adult eats in the United States, they're eating about 12 to 15 grams a day. The recommended minimum is roughly 25 to 38 grams a day, depending on size and gender. Low intake has really real consequences, things like constipation, irregularity, straining. We've talked about those, sluggish transit time. So I was talking earlier about how the soluble fiber will slow down motility enough, right? But we don't want it too slow, because if it's too slow, then the little bugs can get through the wall and start to impact your any carcinogens, anything that's bad that's in there that shouldn't be getting through the lining. It has more of an opportunity to do that. It can cause dysbiosis, imbalance in the gut bacteria. If you are not getting enough fiber, you don't get enough of the short-chain fatty acids, which leads to a weakened intestinal barrier function. And that means it's easier to get sick. It's easier for things like norovirus, which is going around right now, to impact you. It's easier for you to get food poisoning. It's easier for all of these little things that kind of consume and get into our system to make it through the wall and impact us in a negative way. It will cause higher inflammation markers if you're not getting enough fiber. And again, it elevates your risk for colorectal cancer in the future. You have to have fiber to prevent that. Many patients who struggle with things like bloating, IBS symptoms, but maybe haven't been diagnosed with IBS all the way, they're not getting enough fiber, or they're increasing it too rapidly, which kind of brings me to my next point, which is what happens when the fiber is too high. I'm gonna be honest, that's really not very common. That is not a common thing. Usually it's much too little, and usually it's not an issue with having too much. It's just increasing the speed and amount of your intake. So after this talk, don't go have a salad with 25 grams of fiber. Like, you're gonna pay for it. Don't do it that way. Whole food fiber is overwhelmingly safe, but it's the amount and the dosage that you want to pay attention to. If you do get too much or it is too fast of a consumption, so sorry, there's a cat right here. You'll get gas, bloating, abdominal discomfort. And then if you have IBS and it's diagnosed, be careful because it can increase a flare. And that's not something we want anyone to have. It will also, if you increase too quickly, too intensely, it'll reduce absorption of certain minerals. And we don't want that to happen as well. So again, the key isn't more fiber, just more fiber. You want more fiber, but you want it to be slow and intentional when you add it. Take a couple days or week even to add it back in. You'll see a difference pretty quickly. Colon cancer. That's one of the big things that you're seeing now when they're talking about fiber. And it's because it's impacting so many more people. And it's actually really alarming when you look at the statistics. The American Cancer Society, the 2024 data, found that colorectal cancer rates are the highest. It's the highest cancer incidence in people under the age of 50. For men, it's the leading cause of cancer death in men under 50, which is crazy. It's the second leading cause of cancer death in women under 50. And since the 1990s, there's been a 300% incidence raise in colorectal cancer. That's just not just because we're screening better. It's because the incidence is actually higher. So one of the strongest long-term reasons to increase fiber is to prevent colorectal cancer. And every 10 grams of fiber per day is associated with roughly 7 to 10% reduction in cancer risk. So I like those odds. I like those numbers a lot better. But that's one of the things to consider. That is one of the most urgent public health trends, by the way, that CDC is looking at and that doctors are aware of. So that's the big takeaway here. Fiber is a cancer preventative for the colorectal area. Keep that in mind. How much fiber do we actually need? So for women, the general clinical guideline is about 25 grams a day. For men, it's about 38 grams a day. Basically, the math to do is for every 1,000 calories you consume, try to get 14 grams of fiber. Once you kind of know what your numbers are, you can try to hit it. For cancer prevention, if it's in your family history, you've had a screening that means you're at risk, you're one of those people that's just keeping an eye on it. A lot of experts suggest shooting for more like 30 grams of protein a day. And again, most of us are nowhere close. So do a little bit of tracking, see where you're at. If you're low in fiber, again, the key is slow, steady, consistent addition. You have to know where you are. And there's certain apps that'll help you track things like this. MyFitnessPal, a lot of dietary apps where you can like put in what you eat. It gives you caloric breakdown, but it also gives you macro breakdowns. So you can get an idea of how much fiber you're having versus protein, versus carbs, versus fat. It'll do that for you. Once you know the grams, that's when you can start adding things in. Ramp up over 1 to 2 weeks to avoid the bloating. Do it slow, do it consistent. Shoot for 5 grams addition every 3 to 4 days. So say you do the assessment and you find, oh, I'm only getting 15 grams of fiber a day. Shoot for 20 grams of fiber for the next 3 days. If you do okay with that, then shoot for 25. If you don't do okay with that, go back down to the 20 and stay there longer, then add the 25 and stay there for a consistent amount of time. So don't push it. Don't make it uncomfortable for yourself because then you're less likely to sustain it. And we want a sustainable habit here. That's one of the things that we want to encourage everyone to do. If you are going to be increasing your fiber, this is a general rule. We talk to you guys about this a lot. Make sure you are drinking water. Fiber absorbs water to move. Otherwise, you are going to back up. It's going to be awful. So make sure you are hydrating so well. Shoot for whatever your body weight is, 50% of that in ounces. If you're a 200-pound person, shoot for 100 ounces a day of water. And if you find that you do get backed up, just increase your water intake. And again, back down to less of the fiber intake by about 5 grams. Just think 5 gram increments. Also spread the intake throughout the day. A lot of people start to add fiber in and they'll have like a really fiber heavy lunch or dinner. And then the next day is kind of miserable. whatever your grams are going to be, split it up over the 3 meals and snacks. Make sure it's a consistent thing in your gut. And also try to prioritize the source. You want it to be from whole food sources. So one of the things we'll find is that when people are starting to add in fiber, they'll reach for like a powder, like Benefiber, something like that. That's okay, that's an option. But whole foods are going to be easier for your body to digest and to use. So the synthetic can do the job, but it's not what you want to rely on. So be reaching for things like vegetables, fruits, seeds, nuts, legumes. We don't eat that many beans, make sure you're doing things like that because that'll make a big difference for you. And also consider swapping instead of adding. So if you have a processed food that you like, see if you can find a whole food version of it because that'll make a big difference as well. Some people are doing like a meat-free Friday or something like that, and that's a plant-based way to be eating. Even switching one meal can make a big difference. So just reach for more plant-based options. Do consider soluble fiber if you have a sensitive gut. So people with like IBS symptoms or they're reacting poorly to the fiber intake, they'll do better with things like oats, chia seeds, flaxseed that's ground up, and vegetables that are cooked, like lightly steamed instead of just raw. And cruciferous vegetables, things like cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, those tend to be a little bit more difficult for people who are having digestive issues. So just consider steaming the vegetables lightly. You'll still get the benefit. The reason that the fiber is missing in most modern diets is because we eat a lot more processed foods. It's just more available to us. It's something that we've kind of developed into our lives, and that's really crowded out fiber-rich foods, and it tricks your brain into thinking that you're satiated when you're not. So again, whole foods, whole foods, whole foods. Also, a lot of people recently have been focusing a lot on protein. I talk about it a lot too. Like, you want protein to make sure your bones and your joints are healthy, but you have to incorporate fiber as well, or you're just going to irritate everything. So that's one of the things that we check as well. If you tune in next month to our Facebook Live, Dr. Neblet's going to be talking about the standard process cleanse. That is a fiber heavy cleanse to do. We want that. That is something that we want patients to incorporate because, again, the better you do it, the more habits you can build, the healthier your gut will be. That cleanse, I urge you to tune in so that he can show you a way to do it that's like healthy and easy to implement. That cleanse even includes a fiber supplement that is a soluble fiber. So it's a pill that you can take that can help you reach your gram goals if it's something that you're going to be doing. But trust me, that cleanse is fiber forward. You will know what good fiber feels like, and it is something to consider. We do it in an office every year together in the month of January, just to kind of jumpstart our year in the most healthy way. So just add it in. And again, a lot of times people won't realize there's a deficiency until there's an issue to be dealt with. So as chiropractors, we don't mean to lecture, but we really do talk to you guys about that quite a lot. And it's because we see that pattern in musculoskeletal and neurological issues. So if there's somebody in your life who you know is putting off their health, like they're not quite where they should be, they have some challenges, and you want to get them checked out, they can come in and get a full exam in our office that includes a neurological study, any necessary x-rays, orthopedic testing, and a review of findings with the doctor. It's normally $348, but if they mention this webinar and say the word fiber, they can get the full exam and review for $97. So if there's someone you want to get checked, that's a good thing to consider. So yeah, overall, eat your fiber. It's good for your blood sugar, it's good for your metabolism, it's good for your gut, it's good for your microbiome. And again, it's so good to prevent things like colorectal cancer. The rise of that is scary. It's impacting people younger and younger and younger. They're starting to reduce the age that they would like people to be getting their first colonoscopy, which not always a fun test. So do consider adding fiber in. Thank you again for tuning in for our talk here on fiber. We appreciate it. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. We will be sure to get back to you, and have a good rest of your December.